Picture this. You're pulling up your driveway after the happiest day of your life, your daughter's wedding, still tasting the cake on your tongue, the laughter of family echoing in your ears. The faint scent of lilies from the bouquet clinging to your dress blues. Metals heavy with memories from 3 tours overseas, where sandstorms blurred the line between ally and enemy. And explosions taught lessons in impermanence that no classroom ever could. And then, bam, the world tilts sideways, because right there, where your great-grandfather's hands stacked stone upon stone. Back in 1945, where Elias Stonebrook wrestled a wild Blue Ridge Creek into submission with nothing but sweat, dynamite, a stubborn streak wider than the Tennessee hills, and a vision of taming the untamable to protect the land he carved from wilderness with calloused palms and unyielding will, passing down not just acres, but a legacy of resilience forged in the fires of post-war determination. Each block a symbol of defiance against nature's fury and time's erosion. There's nothing left but rubble, diesel smoke curling like a funeral veil over the chaos, jagged limestone chunks scattered. Like broken promises across the banks that once hummed with the gentle trickle of controlled flow, the creek bed now a scarred wound exposing roots and raw earth, and a woman in $1,000 boots. Sipping rose on her deck while the water she unleashed swallows her own manicured kingdom whole, turning pristine lawns into swampy wastelands, storm drains gurgling like drowning throats. The air thick with the irony of her triumph turning toxic right before her eyes, her expression shifting from smug satisfaction to a flicker of doubt as the first waves lapped at her property line, carrying silt and secrets alike. That woman, Victoria Langford, Queen Bee of the Riverside Meadows Homeowners Alliance, the RMHA, a transplant from Silicon Valley who arrived 2 years ago with a Tesla that hummed silently like her calculated cruelty, a vendetta against anything that didn't fit her vision of suburban perfection, her boardroom tactics transplanted to backyard battles with ruthless efficiency and a smile sharp enough to slice bread or hearts with equal ease, her eyes scanning the destruction not with regret, but with a gleam of victory, as if bulldozing 80 years of. My family's legacy was just another item checked off her to-do list, her white blouse immaculate against the muddy backdrop, a stark contrast to the ruin she'd orchestrated with phone calls and forged documents late into the night, her posture rigid like a general surveying a conquered field. She's standing there, clipboard in one hand, champagne in the other, watching my family's legacy dissolve into mud, and I'm still in my dress blues, metals clinking like broken wind chimes against my chest, because I, Jack Stonebrook, retired Army Corps of Engineers, 3 tours in the sandbox, where I learned to build bridges under fire and dams that defied deserts, medical discharge after a blast that left scars deeper than skin, and a limp that reminded me daily of fragility and the cost of service. And now the proud owner of 15 acres that predate her cul-de-sac by half a century. Acres where bullfrogs croaked lullabies under starlit skies. Oak trees whispered stories of survival through rustling leaves, and wild mint released its fresh aroma with every breeze along the banks. I'm watching my daughter Lily's wedding photos get ruined by creek water rushing through the church basement we had to relocate to, her white gown hemmed with mud like a badge of betrayal. Guests milling in confusion, their formal attire clashing with the sudden apocalypse outside. Whispers turning to murmurs of disbelief as smartphones captured the unfolding tragedy, videos that would later go viral with hashtags of outrage. Hook yourself in, because this isn't just about a dam. This is about a war, quiet at first, simmering like underground pressure before an eruption, then loud as thunder rolling across the hills, between a man who builds things to outlast empires, who measures success in decades of stability and controlled flow, drawing from blueprints etched in memory and lessons from floods that swallowed villages whole in distant lands, and a woman who tears them down to hide the holes in her own soul, her ambitions rotting from within like overripe fruit masked by polished rind, her past in corporate climbing leaving a trail of stepped-on colleagues now mirrored in neighborhood conquests fueled by greed. It started small, the way all catastrophes do, a knock on my door that echoed like the first crack in a foundation. Victoria in designer denim that cost more than my first truck, smelling like money and malice, her perfume a cloying veil over the contempt in her gaze as she appraised my hand-carved porch posts. With disdain, telling me my rustic eyesore was a liability, that my creek, my dam, my grandfather's blood in those stones, hand-cut, fitted without mortar, polished by endless seasons of rain and resolve, each block a testament to precision engineering passed down through whispered family tales around winter fires, was now her problem, because the RMHA had retroactively decided that 80 years of flood control owed them $12,000 in infrastructure equity fees concocted from thin air and thicker audacity, as if time itself could be billed like a utility, her folder bulging with pseudo-legal jargon meant to intimidate rather than inform, pages rustling like leaves in a storm. $12,000, taped to my mailbox like a ransom note scrawled in legalese, while bulldozers idled in the distance, their engines growling threats under a sky heavy with impending storm clouds. Waiting for the weekend, I'd be gone, tying the knot for Lily, walking her down an aisle that should have been lined with wildflowers blooming along the creek banks in vibrant pinks and yellows, not mud churning like a beast awakened from slumber, devouring topsoil and memories alike with voracious hunger. I laughed at first, because who wouldn't? A retired engineer with a paranoid streak honed by years of spotting structural weaknesses in both concrete and character. And a filing cabinet full of permits older than her neighborhood, yellow documents bearing my grandfather's faded signature alongside stamps from long-defunct county offices, relics of a simpler era. But laughter dies fast when you realize the enemy isn't just petty, she's pathological, her harassment a campaign of whispers and reports, starting with an anonymous tip to child services, claiming my land was unsafe for Lily's visits with her fiancé's kids, timed right amid wedding planning chaos filled with dress fittings, floral arrangements, and seating charts, the social workers. Apologetic departure doing little to soothe the sting of invasion into our private sanctuary, a violation that lingered like smoke. And she's timed the demolition for maximum heartbreak, 6 a.m. Saturday, the exact hour I'm supposed to be pinning a corsage on my little girl, the sun just peeking over the hills, casting long shadows that mirrored the darkness settling in my gut as the machinery roared to life, birds scattering in alarm. So there I am, boots crunching on gravel still warm from yesterday's sun, each step a drumbeat of rising fury tempered by military discipline. Watching a hydraulic claw bite into limestone that's held back spring floods since before color TV, the stones groaning in protest like old friends bidding farewell, water surging free after decades of restraint, carving new paths through soil that had known peace, eroding banks that once supported picnics and proposals under shady canopies, and Victoria waving a forged emergency order like a victory flag, shouting about catastrophic collapse risk, her voice laced with feigned concern that couldn't mask the glee in her eyes, while the operator looks at me in my dress uniform and mouths, "Sorry, man," his face etched with the unease of a man caught in someone else's vendetta, perhaps regretting the overtime pay for such a dirty job. Sorry doesn't bring back 80 years of history. Doesn't stop the water from turning her perfect storm drains into chocolate rivers overflowing with debris and regret. Doesn't keep Lily's wedding dress from dragging through the same mud that's now lapping at Victoria's foundation, the flood creeping inch by inch toward her deck, her champagne glass trembling slightly as reality dawned, the bubbles in her drink mirroring the chaos she'd bubbled up from her cauldron of schemes. But here's the thing about water, it remembers, it finds every crack, every lie, every stolen dollar hidden in ledgers and offshore havens, and it carries them straight to the surface, relentless, unforgiving, a force that no amount of bylaws or board meetings can dam up forever. Its flow a metaphor for justice delayed but never denied, whispering promises of reckoning. And I'm about to give it a map, charting courses through legal channels and community veins, turning the tide she unleashed into a wave that would wash away her empire of deceit. My mind already racing with strategies drawn from battlefield maps and engineering schematics, alliances forming like reinforced buttresses. You ever feel rage so cold it burns? That's what settled in my chest as the first stone crumbled, not hot, not loud, just a quiet, surgical fury that sharpened every sense. The smell of wet limestone mingling with the acrid bite of exhaust from heavy machinery belching black fumes. The metallic tang of diesel hanging heavy in the crisp October air like a shroud over a grave. The way Victoria's smile faltered when she realized the wedding guest list included a retired federal judge with eyes like steel traps honed by decades of courtroom duels and gavels striking truth, a pastor with a Rolodex thicker than the Bible, and a faith that moved mountains of bureaucracy through quiet persistence and divine timing, and 150 smartphones recording her victory lap in 4K, flashes popping like gunfire in the dawn light, capturing every smug gesture, every fraudulent flourish of her paperwork that bore dates mismatched like a puzzle forced together by desperate hands. She thought she'd won, thought timing the demolition for Lily's big day would break me, keep me too busy with tears and tool to fight back. The relocated reception in the church basement, a makeshift haven of folding chairs and fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Like angry bees, where toasts turned to whispers of outrage. Guests sharing videos over cake that tasted bitter with injustice, their faces illuminated by screens replaying the destruction. But she forgot one thing about engineers. We don't just build dams, we build contingencies, layered plans like reinforced concrete against unforeseen assaults, anticipating failures before they occur, and mine started with a single Google search late that night. Fingers flying over keys illuminated by the glow of my laptop screen in a dimly lit study lined with blueprints and faded photos of family gatherings, turning her expert consultant, Harrison Langford. Yes, same last name, because nepotism is apparently a family value, a tangled web of marital convenience and mutual cover-ups that reeked of insider deals and shared secrets, into a licensed in Texas but practicing in Tennessee fraud, whose credentials collapsed faster than my dam under the scrutiny of state boards and public records, his online profile unraveling thread by thread like a poorly woven lie. One complaint to the state licensing board, one public records request that unearthed a trove of inconsistencies buried in digital archives and dusty county files, and suddenly the queen bee's throne developed a wobble, because when you poke a hornet's nest with facts, the hornets don't sting you. They sting each other. Board members squirming in emergency meetings held in hushed conference rooms with catered coffee going cold, residents murmuring over fences about rising dues and vanishing services that left playgrounds unkempt and streetlights flickering in neglect. Residents started talking. Marcus Thorne, retired history teacher with a voice like warm bourbon and a mind that connected dots like constellations across forgotten timelines of local lore. Evelyn Brooks, widow on fixed income, who'd been nickel and dimed into poverty, her hands trembling as she clutched faded receipts yellowed from age and repeated unfoldings. Preston Caldwell, ex-board member who quit when the math stopped adding up, his resignation letter a prescient warning ignored in the rush of ambition and ego. They all showed up at my kitchen table, coffee brewing strong enough to wake the dead, its aroma blending with the scent of old paper as we spread invoices like tarot cards that spelled one word: theft. Patterns emerging of padded bills for ghost contractors vanishing into ether, phantom projects that existed only in inflated budgets and creative accounting. Funds siphoned like water through hidden leaks in the system's plumbing, drop by drop accumulating into a deluge of deceit. Victoria wasn't just bullying me, she was bleeding the neighborhood dry. Fake landscaping contracts to Langford Luxury Greens, a company that existed only on paper and in her offshore accounts. 200 grand here for non-existent topiary sculptures that never graced a single lawn or cast a shadow. 50 there for imaginary irrigation upgrades that left pipes dry and gardens wilting, all funneled through emergency assessments levied while everyone was distracted by my dangerous dam. Her emails a trail of digital breadcrumbs leading to a feast of fraud complete with attachments of doctored photos and timestamps betraying premeditation. Twist number 1. The flood she unleashed to hide her crimes became the spotlight that exposed them. Wind scattered her soggy financial records across my yard like confetti from a crime scene, bank statements showing negative $847,000 in red ink, screaming mismanagement and desperation like alarm bells. emails plotting insurance fraud with adjusters who smelled desperation from miles away through cautious wording, timestamps proving she'd staged pre-existing damage, photos weeks before the bulldozers rolled, her handwriting on margins noting maximize claim potential and looping script that revealed a trembling hand, the papers curling at edges from creek water that had carried them straight to my doorstep like a gift from the gods of irony, each page a revelation, soaked in poetic justice and the faint scent of mildew. Twist number 2. The private investigator she hired to dig up dirt on me, tailing my truck to the hardware store under cover of dusk with a camera clicking discreetly, snapping photos of mundane errands like buying fence wire for repairs. Agent Kyle Donovan, FBI, already hip-deep in her money trail, his badge hidden behind a facade of freelance sleuthing that she funded unwittingly with stolen dues, because nothing says, "I'm innocent," like paying federal law enforcement to strengthen their case against you, his reports feeding directly into a growing dossier that would seal her fate with ironclad evidence and cross-reference timelines. We went full guerrilla, trail cams catching Victoria in yoga pants burglarizing my shed. At 2 a.m., her flashlight beam darting like a cornered animal through the shadows cast by moonlight, cursing under her breath as she tripped over garden tools scattered like booby traps in the dew-kissed grass, the footage grainy but damning on playback with timestamps irrefutable, encrypted group chats that looked like church potluck planning but were actually battle plans dissecting bylaws and tracing transfers with forensic precision over secure lines. Sophia Reyes, environmental lawyer with a grudge against HOA tyrants forged in past courtroom battles where she dismantled similar empires brick by brick, her voice steady as she mapped legal assaults over steaming mugs in late-night sessions. Judge Harlan Whitaker, federal bench warmer who'd seen every trick in the book, and added footnotes from his own rulings on corruption cases. Pastor Daniel Reed, whose prayer circles doubled as witness protection for whistleblowers, his sermons weaving themes of justice into the fabric of our strategy sessions held under the soft glow of kitchen lights amid the aroma of baked goods. Crescendo came at the community center, still reeking of mildew from the flood she caused. Damp spots on walls like accusatory stains weeping condensation in the humid air, where Victoria rented a Bentley with tinted windows financed by pilfered funds, hired off-duty cops who shifted uncomfortably in their uniforms as the crowd grew restless with folded arms, and staged a propaganda circus complete with PowerPoint slides calling me a domestic extremist, her pointer laser dancing across images of my dam like a weapon aimed at hearts, voice rising in feigned alarm about threats to children and property values that masked her own predatory schemes woven into every slide. She was mid-sentence, voice dripping condescension laced with panic bubbling beneath the surface like a pot about to boil over, when I stood up, slow, clapped my way to the mic. The room's tension thick as fog rolling off the creek at dawn, and dropped the bomb. Thank you for confessing to felony vandalism on camera. Now let's talk about the $2 million you embezzled while sipping rose on the deck you're about to lose, the shell companies, the Cayman accounts, the bribes you attempted over coffee last week in that corner booth smelling of desperation and stale pastries. The room froze, then erupted, because nothing unites a neighborhood like watching their thief get handcuffed mid-lie. Gasps rippling through the crowd like waves on the creek. Chairs scraping as people leaned forward, the air electric with the crackle of impending justice long overdue. Cameras rolling to capture the historic unraveling. Handcuffs clicking on Victoria's wrists sounded like church bells at a funeral for corruption, sweet, final, cinematic. The way federal agents swarmed the stage while news drones circled overhead, their lenses capturing the fall in high definition with whirring precision, live streaming her meltdown to 1 million viewers who'd never met her but instantly hated her haircut and her hubris, her protests echoing off water-stained walls as Agent Donovan read rights with the patience of a man wrapping a long hunt, his tone even as she thrashed against the inevitable, her designer outfit rumpling in defeat. She took the plea. 5 years in federal prison where designer boots gave way to standard-issue sneakers and cell block routines stripped of luxury, every dime forfeited, restitution that turned our broke RMHA into a community trust fund richer than most small towns. auditors combing through ledgers to reclaim every cent with meticulous spreadsheets and forensic software, the total swelling to $1 million as hidden accounts surfaced like buried treasure unearthed by subpoena shovels from tropical banks shrouded in secrecy. My settlement? $500,000, blood money that felt like pocket change compared to watching Lily renew her vows beside a restored dam that now has fish ladders for trout to leap joyfully upstream in silver flashes, walking trails winding through wild mint and oaks that shaded summer gatherings with dappled light, and a bronze plaque that reads, "Built by Elias Stonebrook in 1945, rebuilt by neighbors in 2025 because water remembers," the engraving deep and enduring, a testament to resilience etched in metal that caught the sun like a beacon. We replaced the RMHA with the Blue Ridge Commons, Democratic votes tallied in open meetings under string lights strung across backyards, open books scrutinized by volunteer committees with eagle eyes, potlucks where the only thing assessed is who brings the best casserole or shares the spiciest gossip about past scandals, laughter replacing the fear that once silenced questions and stifled community spirit. Property values soared when buyers learned they'd own homes, not indentured servitude to invisible overlords, real estate agents touting our story as a selling point. Live where justice flows as freely as the creek. Brochures featuring before and after photos of the dam. We started the Stonebrook Veterans Fund, using Victoria's dirty money to counsel vets she tried to demonize. Group sessions in the community center now repaired and repainted with fresh coats, covering old wounds, where stories of survival echoed off walls once marred by her flood, turning pain into purpose and bonds into unbreakable alliances. Kids learn engineering at the Blue Ridge Water Lab, built where her flood once raged, hands-on classes with model dams and flow simulations under expert guidance. Because the best revenge isn't destruction, it's education that arms the next generation against tyrants in tailored suits with knowledge as their shield. Tennessee passed the Stonebrook Transparency Act, mandating HOA audits by independent firms with unassailable reputations. Criminal background checks for board members to weed out wolves in sheep's clothing lurking in elections, and a hotline for neighbors who smell embezzlement in rising dues or vanishing amenities. The legislation born from our testimony in state hearings packed with reporters, my voice steady as I recounted the wedding day wreckage amid flashing cameras. The FBI launched a national task force, using our case as the textbook example of how to turn a backyard feud into a federal takedown. Training modules featuring our trail cam footage and email chains dissected in classrooms. Agents nodding in recognition of patterns we'd uncovered through late-night kitchen huddles fueled by determination. Last scene, fade in on Lily's anniversary, sunset painting the water gold over the restored stones that gleamed with fresh polish, 4 generations of Stonebrooks skipping stones across a creek that flows gentle again, laughter mingling with the trickle of controlled water and birdsong, Lily's children splashing at the edges, their tiny hands grasping pebbles worn smooth by time and tender care. Because sometimes the universe hands you a villain so perfect. All you have to do is document the crime and let gravity do the rest. Watching as the river of justice carves its own path, deeper and truer than any man-made channel, restoring balance to a world tilted by greed. Closure tastes like creek water, clean, cold, unstoppable, a sip that quenches the thirst for fairness long denied, leaving echoes of triumph in its wake. Now you tell me, where do you draw the line between protecting community standards and straight-up theft wrapped in bylaws? When does neighborhood improvement become a license to destroy a veteran's legacy? Drop your worst HOA horror story below, because the next dam they bulldoze might be yours, and the next flood might carry your name straight to justice, if you're ready to give it directions.